Hi guys, my name is Josie. I'm going to be showing you a really easy introduction to Python. I'm going to be showing you two different programs to get familiar with the basics of the language. After this introduction, you should be able to assign variables, use the print and random integer function, and use conditional statements, or at least be familiar with those concepts. So the first program that I wanted to run through is the Hello World. It's typical for any programming language that you start with. This is 9 out of 10 times what the very first example is. So I've added a little bit in there. I have just a blank file right here that I'm going to step by step kind of show you how each program prints and what it prints out down here in the shell. So for our first program, the very first thing that it does is just print hello world. So using the print function, it's literally just print, open parentheses, and then single or double quotes, doesn't matter, just make sure they match. And then the text that you want. So text like this is just called a string. So when we run it, you can do run up here, and then run the module, or do F5 on your keyboard, and then you have to save the first one in idle. So this can be hello 2. So down here, it has given us this output of hello world. So our next step is going to be printing another statement. Just to get familiar with using the print function. So if you're following along, you can of course use your own name in place of where I put my own name. So now it has printed down here at the bottom, hello world, my name is Josie. The next thing I added in here was assigning a variable of user equals input. And then for the input, it's going to ask you down here in the shell, when we run it again, what is your name? And once you respond to that, down here, once we get further into the program, it will actually output your name. So always making sure to have your single or double quotes and ending your parentheses. So go ahead and run this. So hello world, my name is Josie, what is your name? And then I'll just use my middle name, do Marie. So now that we don't have anything further, so it's not going to print anything out yet. So let's go ahead and get that in there. So we're going to use the print function once again and do hello, and we're going to do a space and then the close single quote, because if you don't put a space in between your output down here, it'll print it all smushed together. So, and then we're going to do plus the variable user. So it's taking this variable right here, and whatever you answer to this question, it's taking your answer and putting it in this text. So it'll output hello, your name, exclamation point. So plus exclamation point, close parenthesis, run. So I'll do Marie. Hello, Marie. And then the very last step to this is just print goodbye world. Whoops. Forgot my. So it will give you a syntax error when you run it if you're forgetting something. Whoops. But so that is the simple hello world program, just to get you familiar with printing statements and using strings, closing your parentheses, making sure you have all that right stuff in there. So like I said, this is a variable and you assigned it to an input of what is your name. So that gave you down here your input right here. So the next program that I wanted to show you guys is rock, paper, scissors. So let's open up a new file. And let's get this so it's not all together. So first thing we want to do for rock, paper, scissors is import random integer function from random. So from random, import, if I can type today, randint. So later on in the program, it's going to generate some random integers for us down here, which will associate to their values up here as rock, paper, scissors. So first thing we want to do is take variable of player and assign it to the input of the question rock, paper, or scissors. So I'm just actually going to copy and paste that. It'll be quicker. All right, so if we go ahead and run this, I'll just show you guys what it outputs as. Rock, paper, or scissors. And then you choose by typing in R, P, or S. So I'll just do scissors. And of course, it's not going to output anything else because we don't have anything in this window here. So our next step would be to, actually I forgot to mention, up here for each of these values, you're going to want to give the letter in parentheses, and don't forget the comma. That just associates that R for rock, P for paper, S for scissors, and so on if you had more values. So the next step is to print out what the player picks. So it's going to be print and then the variable of player, and then a string with VS for verse, and then later it'll give us the computer's answer. So it'll say the player's answer, so rock, paper, scissors, versus the computer's answer of rock, paper, scissors. So I'll just show you rock, paper, scissors. Let's do paper. Paper versus. So far that's all we got, so that's good that it's giving us what we've put in so far. So next we're going to make a variable of chosen, and it's going to be equal to random integer of 1 through 3. So this is where we use that randint function that we imported earlier, and we're just assigning it values of 1 through 3, nothing more, nothing less. So the 1 corresponds to the R for rock, 2 is paper, 3 is of course scissors. So then we can go ahead and do print chosen. Over here I have that commented out because once we get down to this code down here, we don't need it anymore. So you can completely delete it once we get to that part, or you can just comment it out with the hashtags. So let's go ahead and print this. Rock, paper, scissors. Let's do rock. Rock versus 1. So 1 equals rock, so it would be a tie. So now we're going to assign the values of 1, 2, and 3 to their associated rock, paper, or scissors. So to do that, we are using conditional statements. So if, else if, and else. Else if is ELIF, so it's just shortened. So for our first one, it's going to be if the variable chosen equals 1, the computer is going to print out R. And then for conditional statements, the following, so everything that you list after the if, those are only checked if the first condition fails. So if chosen does not equal 1, it will run through until it finds the result of 2 or 3 and then give that associated value. Also for saying if a value is equal to something, to show that it's equal, you use the equal sign twice. So you say it as if chosen equal 1, colon, computer equals R. So I'm just going to copy and paste that in there. And this is when you can comment out that print chosen or just completely delete it. For the purposes, I'll just delete it out of there. And take these as well. So if chosen equals 1, it's going to be R. Else if chosen equals 2, it'll be P. And then else is S. So for else statements, since there's only 3, you only have to do one else if, and then the else will be everything else. so the third option. And after that, you are going to want to print computer. So let's go ahead and run this. So rock, paper, scissors, scissors, scissors versus scissors. So it's a tie. Also, you see how the S, when it prints out the computer's output, it's on a different line. So to get rid of that line, it's not necessarily something you have to do, but it just looks a little neater if you were making this for like a project or to show someone else. You can add this code up here. So it tells Python to end with a space instead of a new line. So you add that into your print statement here. You're gonna, don't forget your comma after the string, and then you're gonna do space end equals single quote space single quote. So let's go ahead and run that, and you can see the difference here. So paper versus scissors, all on one line. It just, like I said, looks a little cleaner. So now what we're gonna do is print out, use more conditional statements to print out if it's a draw or who wins. So for each of these statements, I'm just gonna copy and paste this whole chunk here. For both of these statements, I forgot to mention, for conditionals, you need to indent after the colon here. So indent with a tab or 4 spaces. So down here, it's saying if player equals computer. So if the player input equals the computer's input, it's going to be a tie. And then for the else if player equals R and computer equals S, then the player, of course, wins. And then so these are the rest of the options for who can win, depending on what they choose. So that is the end of this program. Let's go ahead and run it and see our results. So let's do paper versus scissors. Let's run that one more time. Oops. There we go. So I picked scissors, and computer randomly generated the number 3 or scissors, so it's a tie. So you can see the different answers. We'll do it again. Whoops. I did that wrong, my bad. All right, come on. All right, so rock, paper, scissors, scissors, enter. Of course it's gonna give me that again. I was gonna show you guys the different options. Let's do paper. Oh my goodness, what are the odds? Great. Let's do paper again. All right, there we go. So this just shows you the different outputs right here. So it was a tie again, and then for this one, it was paper versus rock, so the player wins. And that is the really simple introduction to Python using a bunch of print statements, getting those variables in there, getting familiar with those, and then using random integer to get those random responses from the computer side, and then getting you used to using some conditional statements here. So that is all I have for you for our first tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope it was easy to follow along.